Spent my childhood growing up in a Christian family and in church. Apparently, I hadn't been especially great at paying attention. But I had caught on, better late than never, I guess, and had become intrigued by what my uncle and aunt would be doing half a world away. Eventually, all my research added up to one wild idea. I wanted to see it all for myself. To be clear, my desire to go stemmed from both family and missions, probably a 50-50 split. I thought it was pretty neat that Kenya could potentially combine both those things for me. If visiting my family meant I could have a chance to play some small role in the mission field, why wouldn't I go? If doing mission work in Kenya gave me a chance to serve side by side with my family, what could be better than that? But there was one glaring problem. When you're 12, being hooked on a trip to another continent doesn't mean anything unless you have permission. This will probably tell you a lot about how my family works. When I first asked for permission to go to Africa, I didn't think the moment required any fanfare, such as a serious discussion or even the presence of both parents. I was riding in the car one day while my mom was running errands, and I simply brought up the subject and asked, "Mom, when Uncle Logan and Aunt Julie are in Kenya, do you think I could go visit them and help out?" My mom's eyes got wide and her eyebrows shot up. She stayed quiet for a while, and when she eventually spoke, I could tell she was being cautious with her words. They were drawn out and enunciated carefully. "I don't see why you shouldn't go." This will probably tell you a lot about me. I took that as a yes. Back at home that evening, I was eager to get my dad up to speed. I knew that for me to go to Africa, I'd need one of my parents to play chaperone, and I figured Dad was my best bet. He too was fascinated about Logan and Julie's adventure since first hearing about it, so I was hoping that as he pondered the possibility of getting involved, he'd be willing to add me to the equation. So I asked. And he was. He was. That night, as my two younger brothers crashed around the house and played video games, my mom, Dad, and I sat in the living room and began talking logistics. None of us had ever planned a trip like the one we were considering, and we had a lot of questions. How expensive would it be? How would we pay for the flights, passport fees, and other travel costs? Would it be safe? When would be a good time to go? What would we do there if we actually did make the trip? Questions in hand, we did some more research. We started by talking with Logan and Julie about volunteer possibilities, travel specifics, lodging, and whether my age might limit what we could do. All their responses were encouraging. We would have plenty to do and numerous opportunities to help, they said. Plus, they could help us get around in Kenya, and we could stay with them at their place. The more we talked, thought, and prayed, the more excited we all became. It never seemed like God was closing any doors on our idea. Instead, he kept swinging them wide open. We began sketching out a possible plan and an estimated budget. We figured that Dad and I could go for 2 weeks around the time of my spring break, so I wouldn't miss too much school. We could visit Logan, Julie, and Liam, soak up some of the local culture, and serve wherever we were needed. It would be fantastic. And it would be expensive. My dad and I would need money for international flights, some overnight stays, meals, passport fees, road transportation, and probably a few unplanned incidentals. Our estimated grand total was about $5,000. My parents made it clear from the start that paying for a trip to Africa was going to take faith. We would have to trust that God could supply whatever amount we needed in order to go. We knew from the Bible that God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Everything belongs to him. Although we had no idea how God might supply for my dad and me, we knew that if he wanted us in East Africa, he would somehow come through. But we had to make some sacrifices too. Sacrifice had been a specific mandate, in fact. In giving me permission to go to Kenya, my parents had made a deal with